first Ignite presentation will be by Pete from Veracode. You ready, Pete? Yeah. All right.
All right. So as a doctor friend of mine said once, all bleeding will eventually stop. So this will only last 5 minutes. You also notice the slow buildup. It'll be like a roller coaster, going up the hill and then lots of wordy stuff. Right. All right, so I'm Pete Chestnut, Director of Developer Engagement at Veracode, and here to talk to you about secure DevOps. Still going up the hill. So the goal for today is to talk to you about why you should care about AppSec, talk about the pressures that you're under, what you can ask the security team for, and what you can do to help yourselves as well. So 70% of the software that we see has at least one vulnerability in the OWASP top 10. If you remember from Franklin's talk yesterday, that's the open web standard. DHS reports that 90% of security incidents come from application software. Software that we write causes these things to occur. It is the layer through which we are attacked. They don't come in through the front door. So Target, it was an HVAC vendor. So if you think about doing the crown jewels, that's a great start, but you have to think about other things. JPMC was through a charity event and unpatched software for community health. Most developers don't have a program. It's all ad hoc. Getting to goodness is about automation, is about making it part of your system. And most companies don't even know, a lot of companies don't even know how many applications they actually have. So how do we do this? How do we build it faster? How do we secure it, what we find? And how do we protect ourselves and our companies from being breached? This is what the business is asking us to do. If you think about how our methodologies have come through, waterfall, years. We're down to days, hours, minutes that we're trying to release this software. Boy, 15 seconds is a long time sometimes. This is how the security team feels. Got this unicorn that's spitting out all kinds of stuff faster than they can look at it, and they're left to clean up the mess. Good, I'm glad that one landed. And here's every step up this ladder, more people on the team, more things for you to worry about, and less time to do it. They want it faster, and they aggregate more people and more responsibility into that team. Cost. So doing it early, doing it when you write it, right, is a lot cheaper than when I put it into UAT or when I get it out into production. And we all know this. It doesn't matter what kind of a flaw that is. So we need to change and move left and right. We need to think about doing it very early in the development cycle, and not just that assurance check, and doing and protecting ourselves while we're in our production environments. So here's some stats. 30% increase in fix rate if you have access to training. Developers aren't trained to be secure developers. You have to train them. So ask for e-learning. So let's fix what we find. So here's another stat. If you get help with remediation, 2.5 times faster. You fix 2.5 times the flaws of an average person that isn't trained and doesn't have that expert guidance. And again, this is from our 2 trillion lines of code and our hundreds of thousands of applications. Scan early and scan often. I mean, this is DevOps right here, right? If you're doing that, that means you're measuring it, which means you're looking at it and reacting to it. So doing that early in your cycle and doing it continuously will get you there faster. Invest in yourself. Start with thinking about design and what third-party risk you're bringing on board. Integrate in your IDE. Fix it where you write it, where you find it and where you write it, and automate. It's the same thing for DevOps. It's the same thing for us. CI/CD chain, put it in there at least. So if you're happier, you're going to be happier if you're spending less time on security. If you do this all the time through continuous improvement, you will get there faster, and you will do this less often because you're trained in it. You'll bring your friends on board, and your brain will get bigger. Verico can help. We go across the waterfront, everywhere inside of your development shop, for all the way from training to protecting you in production and helping you get there securely. That's what Verico does. So in closing, think about being a partner with security, not an adversary, right? You don't want to be that unicorn. Work with them, help them understand the pressures you're under, help them explain to you, or let them explain to you what pressure they're under, and work together for that solution. Thank you.
All right, now we have Matt, who's going to give us a talk on DevOps Ecclesiastes. So get ready for some biblical references.
So hi, my name is Matthew Andrews. I am work in operations at the University of North Texas Health Science Center, and our mission is to create solutions for a healthier community. I'm here today to just share with you some of my journey with DevOps. Like many journeys, it started with automation, where I was tired of typing in repeated commands, clicking on buttons, and doing things all by myself. But I discovered a problem with automation. Automation meant that if I made a mistake, I repeated myself over and over and over. Jenkins World this week, somebody mentioned if you're not automating to the point where you've accidentally deleted something, you've not automated enough. Along with automation, I started doing continuous deployment, where I don't have to take a whole bunch of code from the developer, package it up myself, roll it out, get it to every environment, copy by hand. Awesome. It's less manual work to deploy. The problem is now I've got a new thing running around that can fail on me. My Jenkins cluster needs a little bit of babysitting. It needs some configuration management. It needs some love. Great. But I also went and got better monitoring. I can now see more what's going on, and I can find out that, hey, things aren't as good as I'd like them to be. Now, my developers like that because saw my improvement and were like, hey, we want to improve. So they adopted Scrum, worked on improving their processes. Scrum led to some issues sometimes. Scrum can be a little sclerotic. It can lead to some scar tissue where they're very dependent on following their time boxes and following their deadlines. So like I said, monitoring, we got data. We found out that, hey, it takes this SQL query this long, it takes this other SQL query this long. We can see that we're responding quicker, that we're getting work through faster. And the problem is now I've got terabytes of data that I didn't have before. What do I do with it? I don't know. What do I tell my boss that, hey, I know every time I failed now? I can tell him, though, that I've got all this time. I can tell my boss that I've got quicker mean time to recovery now. I also adopted Kanban. I can measure my work. I can see my work in process. I can see what I need to do. I can see what I've done this week. That makes my boss happy. He likes to know that I've done something. The problem is now I've realized my work is never ending. I see my backlog, and it is always growing. Every day, somebody has something new that they want to add to it. So the other thing that I've learned is that I've got to work with the business. It's important to remember that in IT, most of the time, our job is not to produce something that's going to be sold to a customer. Some of the people, it's like that. Our job is to help the rest of the organization do whatever it is the business does better. The problem is the organization doesn't always know what it's doing either. So even though I'm doing my best to help the organization improve, the organization doesn't always know what it wants to improve. So culture is another big part that we've worked on, and it's taken time. We've been going for at least 3 years now on improving our culture, and it's been a slow process. We're getting better. And the terrifying thing about improving the culture is that it never ends. People change. New people come on. We have to integrate them into our culture. We have to help eliminate bad habits that will creep back up. And that improvement process does never end. But we're going to get there. So in conclusion, everything about DevOps is terrible. It's all work that we've got to do later. Okay, That's lies. So I've called this a DevOps Ecclesiastes because in the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon tries out a whole bunch of stuff and finds that it's all awful. But he does find that there's actually a couple of things that really matter. For us, the thing to remember is that nobody's there yet. If you go to Netflix, if you go to Etsy, if you go to any of the other unicorns, you're going to find out that they've got pain points too. They've got stuff that they absolutely hate. We have to continue to improve. If you don't work on improving every day, you're not going to be where you want to be. So play to the standard of trying to be as best as you can. In conclusion, I've got a little poem about how there is a time for everything. There's a time for everything and a season for everything within IT. There's a time to plan and a time to do, a time to code and a time to commit, a time to test and a time to debug. There's a time to build and a time to deploy, a time to scale up and a time to scale out, and there's a time to learn and there's a time to apply what you've learned. Thank you so much.
We are going to have Mr. Josh come up. Come on up, Josh. Let's give him a hand.
I am not the technical difficulty this time. Hey everyone, my name is Josh Atwell, developer advocate for NetApp SolidFire, and I'm here to talk to you about infrastructure extensibility in your home and in DevOps. I threw on here a little bit about me, how you can find me on GitHub, where there's not a whole lot of code, but I'm going to start posting presentations like this one. Infrastructure extensibility is the concept and the view of hardware and components in our lives that are extensible, that can be changed, and that can be manipulated through APIs and SDKs. They are now being built with integrations that we can leverage with common tools. You're able to apply those changes programmatically. You're able to apply code, you're able to leverage those tools, and when you're looking at these products, you're usually looking for maximum feature availability. You want to be able to do the most with that, right? You don't want to have a limited subset. And you may not know it, but you've already been marketed these items like ad nauseum, specifically in your home, right? This is an image directly from Best Buy's website. They're telling you can connect everything in your home, even some things that you look at and scratch your head, like, why do I really need to connect that in my home? The reality is we've always expected that. Thomas Edison knew as soon as he finished his 10,000 iterations and created the light bulb, he needed to know where to put the Wi-Fi antenna. We haven't always expected this. It's a relatively new thing. It's a new concept for us in how we move. But if you look throughout your home, you'll note that just about everything that has had a traditional place in our space now has the opportunity to be extensible and to be included into our digital lives. And we have access to control these things remotely, but it sometimes creates problems. I'm on the road quite a bit, and I'll get texts like this. Maybe the mower is mowing the neighbor's driveway again. I don't know why, and there's nothing I can do about it unless I've opened up that capability. Otherwise, it's just So these challenges present us opportunities to have new technologies that could do the control level and support leveraging those APIs, those SDKs, being able to reach out into those systems and allow you to have a desired behavior, just like you do when developing software, being able to control the outcome. And I don't really have a whole lot to say about this slide. I just wanted Nikola Tesla in to say totes. I saw that coming. Because he was a futurist, and he saw different visions of the future. And when you think of the impact extensibility of infrastructure has, there's a lot of potential there. Look upon Nikola Tesla. So how does this relate to DevOps? Well, when you look at the maturity of DevOps organizations or organizations that have implemented DevOps, continuous integration and continuous delivery, being able to manipulate the infrastructure in order to deliver code is a sign of maturity, right? Because it's great that you made the code, you committed it, that's awesome, but can you deploy it, right? Developers have always been able to outpace what we've done in a process of being able to deploy successfully. It's part of why DevOps exists, to reduce that pain and that impact. Well, if you look at what we've done in that, there was the Great Wall of Deployment, right? And if you're on the operations side, which I've always been for the most part, the code comes over and you figure out what's going on. You spend your weekend handling all the issues and things like that. And a large part of that was because different people had different control. The infrastructure was not extensible. You had to use SSH or CLIs, individual tools for each individual component, limited accessibility, and you were limited based on what the manufacturer was delivering to you. But today, We can use a common subset of tools. We can leverage common APIs. REST has become very prevalent. You have JSON RPC. People know how to use that, both from an operations and development side. And the integrations are now things that we can contribute to. We can actually change the infrastructure. And all these tools have come out. Like every time I talk to people in IT, it hurts their head thinking about all the tools that are out there that help us take the pain and take that effort away of leveraging this new extensibility and this new capability. So when I talk to people about storage, specifically SolidFire, the first thing they think is, oh man, I'm going to turn this thing into like this rocket suit. It's going to be like the Mark 42, Tony Stark. And you kind of have to slow their roll a little bit because these folks are traditionally not doing that. So policy-based management has become very prevalent. We've had policy-based management, but it's always been limited. Now we are able to implement policies where we can define and identify the behavior that we anticipate for the infrastructure, and we can apply it directly to infrastructure, not just on the virtual side, right? This provides us that consistency, flexibility, being able to be predictable, right? Know exactly how the infrastructure is going to behave as things need and change. And then, of course, with configuration tools, be able to monitor and track that drift. Now we are able to leverage direct infrastructure, not just virtualize things, but leveraging containers, OpenStack, VMware. It doesn't matter the platform. The extensibility of the infrastructure allows us to create this bridge over the great wall of deployment, which makes everybody happier because it's software defined. You can trust it, just maybe don't plug it into the internet. Thank you very much.
All right. I have really sad news for you. DevOps is dead. It's been a nice run, and some of you just learned about it today or yesterday, but it's done. We're done. 7 years of unicorns, development and operations working together, DevOps. We can no longer use that word. But first, some history, right? DevOps, it all started 7 years ago with agile infrastructure. And when we said agile infrastructure then, we meant using Velcro ties instead of wire ties in the data center, because that's agile. And then along came the cloud. And the cloud was amazing because it allowed the developers to route around the operations people. I could go to a website and just click a button and launch my application. It was beautiful. I could get away from that department of no. But to actually leverage the cloud, I had to start automating my infrastructure as code, and I had to start thinking about things differently. But with that cloud, it was just developers operating. It was kind of like Anthrax covering Public Enemy, playing Bring the Noise. It was good, but it wasn't quite right. There was something off about it. Well, then you had the operations people come in and say, hey, listen, security, the S1Ws in Public Enemy, we got to be here and look after your cloud. Also, what about monitoring? Look at Flava Flav. You see that clock? He's in operations. He's monitoring everything. He knows what's going on. But it got really awesome when we said, all right, DevOps is when we bring these two together and we bring the noise. So we got Public Enemy and Anthrax bringing the noise. That's DevOps. But we talked yesterday about inclusion. And what about QA? Like, stuff still breaks. So we can't just skip QA. QA has to be part of it. We shall no longer use the word DevOps. It shall now be Dev QA Ops. That's what we're going to do. But what about security? We've heard many talks these past 2 days about security. We can't leave them out. So the new word, moving forward, it shall be DevSecQA Ops. We're not leaving anyone out. All right? Are you with me? Okay. So what's next? What about the enterprise? What about the normals? We have to let them do this as well. So from now on, we will be Enterprise Dev QA Sec Ops. Everybody in? We're doing all this Windows stuff. We are the enterprise. We have 10,000 developers. We have to do the real thing by the enterprise. Oh, what about those networks? We learned yesterday that we can automate the networking devices as well. All right, so now the word is Enterprise Dev Sec Net QA Ops. That's what we're going to do. No longer, finance, money. As we move from the data center to the cloud, we have to think about operating expenses and capital expenses. All right. Enterprise, Dev, Fin, Sec, QA, Net, Ops. That's what we are now. That damn government. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that's what DevOps is all about. That's what we're thinking about. So we better include the government. Now on, Enterprise, Dev, Fin, Sec, Net, QA, GovOps. That's the jam. Oh, but compliance and security. The good thing about compliance here is that we can just call them governance, and we don't need to change the word. We can keep it exactly the same. We'll be good computer programmers, and we will overload a term. So gov might mean government, it might mean governance. What about human resources? So I want to work with other teams. I want to form 2 pizza teams that come up and go down and go away. My HR policies have to support that. Enterprise dev, HR, fin, net, sec, gov, DevOps. But security isn't enough. We have to get really automated about that. That's where we get rugged. Rugged is where it's at. So now we're rugged, enterprise dev, HR, fin, sec, net, QA, gov, ops. We're really starting to include everyone that matters. Ooh, except the legal department. I want to do open source. I want to use open source. I want to contribute back to open source. I have to include legal in those conversations. Also, legal said I cannot shorten their name. It has to be legal. It has to be all of it there. So it's rugged, enterprise, dev, sec, legal, HR, fin, net, ops. But what about the customer? The customer is the reason that we're actually here. That's the people that we care about. That's who we're driving this for. Rugged, enterprise, dev, legal, HR, fin, sec, net, QA, gov, cust, ops. What is this? Is it a chaflower? No, it's a cake, and it's delicious. You put your fork in it, you put it in the mouth, and you feel really good. We don't call this a chaflower. We don't list every ingredient. We just call it a cake. We don't have to call it DevOps by any other name. We can include everyone. DevOps is a cultural and professional movement focused on how we build and operate high-velocity organizations. It is born from the experiences of its practitioners. I love and will include every single one of our departments in this term DevOps, but I refuse to call it anything other than DevOps. We do not need those other names in there. Everyone here practices DevOps. We are not generalists. We are well-connected specialists. We are all DevOps. Long live DevOps.